Dalton here, the big bad wolf. Everybody seems to be scared of Ron Dalton. Little old Ron Dalton, no assembly, no congregation, no church, no synagogue, no school. And I see that Bishop Nathaniel is upset and disturbed at how he seems to be feeling as though I ambushed him on the Nano's channel. And they called the Nano and they said, why did you allow Ron Dalton to come on to the line and ask the bishop questions? How dare Ron Dalton? How dare Ron Dalton come?
Hey, giving all praises to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shah by Hashem HaRachakodash. Send double honors to our apostles and elders here, great millstone. Peace and blessings to the Lord's hopefully elect. So if you don't know, that's Ron Dalton. He's the one that's the author of the book From Hebrews to Negroes. He was the one that I believe made a movie about it, or such and such like that. But he doesn't have 100% truth or understanding of the scriptures, because he said that he said that the chariots of the scriptures are not the angels. He actually thinks when you read the word chariot that it's talking about an actual carriage chariot for like a horse. He don't understand that. So that's when we figured out, okay, so he doesn't have the truth. He just has knowledge, but he doesn't have understanding. He just has knowledge on history to be able to identify that the slaves that were brought over here on cargo slave ships were indeed Hebrews. So that's what he's known for. Now, recently, I watched it through Elder Pastor Hart's lesson, but recently he went on this panel again with some guy, I guess, that he's familiar with, and from the looks of it, they were talking about what from the looks of it, looks like Bishop Nathaniel was sitting down with him live and willing to answer anybody's questions who come on there and ask him about certain topics, like what happened in France and what happened in Kenya. But the guy apparently had Ron Dalton ready to come on there to question him, right? To question him. And what he did was he asked him, he questioned him regarding his stance on understanding of scripture, in particular Ezekiel chapter 38. And it didn't go as Bishop Nathaniel may have wanted it to go, because he kind of got thrown off a little bit. He probably saw like what is this? What is this? What are you guys doing here? But the questions that Ron Dalton asks, I mean, they're really just basic questions that anybody who's on the other side or anybody who's looking to inquire about the scriptures would ask. He basically just asks, how do you, if you're saying that, and this is the problem of when you try to speak how do you say, like black or white, like to say, oh, they're white this and white that, because what Ron Dalton asked him was, are you saying that all Europeans are all so-called white people Edomites? And he said all white people Edomites, and the bishop said yes. So then he said, well, how do you explain the children of Japhet? And that's when Bishop Nathaniel said, well, you got the Samoan people, the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, those people. So then he said, well, how do you explain Ezekiel 38? And Ezekiel 38. He said, how do you explain Ezekiel 38? Because when you read Ezekiel 38, it talks about the sons of Japhet coming down against Israel. But the IUIC does not break down Ezekiel 38 chapter correctly. So what ended up happening was he went to Revelation 20 and tried to say that after 1,000 years of being in the kingdom, that's when they're going to try to rise up or whatever. But it didn't sound right. It didn't come out. That's not correct. And what ended up happening was he basically got caught up in his breakdown, and he was like, well, wait a minute, that's not the question I asked. That's not the question I asked. And then Bishop Nathaniel resorted to he got frustrated, and he basically like, look, this is a Negro, and he's like a crab in a barrel. So it looks like, he resorted to a personal ad hominem. So you got these nobodies. I mean, these people are straight up nobodies, whoever this guy is, commenting on what happened. And he's basically like, yep. Bishop Nathaniel, you see, you out of character. These nobodies talking stuff now, right? Well, this what's happening is the IUIC is being tried. Bishop Nathaniel is being tried. So the breakdowns that you have, this look, this is what happens when you operate outside of the scriptures and you do your own thing. Eventually, the Lord is going to come and try you. So now your house is being tried. Because, nobody questions the bishop. You can't do that. So when Ron Dalton just said that, when he said that, how he used those words, how dare Ron Dalton, right? How dare he, ambush. See, those are his words, but I'm willing to bet that's exactly what IUIC said. They will use words like that. Oh, I was ambushed. How dare he? Because, you can't question the bishop. But this is, eventually you was going to get caught out there, man. You do know that, man. Because Bishop Nathaniel, he makes sure that whenever you see him teaching, or if he talking to anybody, he's talking to somebody as just a teacher, or talking about him. You can't question him, and he'll make sure you don't question him. If you say anything that'll throw him off, he'll throw a fit. That's why he doesn't go out and teach, because anybody can come up and talk, and anybody can ask questions. When you examine IUIC, those men, they're not rooted. The men you see go out there on the corners, they're not rooted in scripture. They're not rooted in understanding. It's a reason why they go to the ghettos and in those neighborhoods. They're going and hoping that they can just lecture in, what's another word? Basically lecture and hound the unlearned, and say, you all a bunch of sinners. You're going to be destroyed. You're going to go to hell this, hell that. We're the prophets. We're the teachers. And anytime somebody that comes up and they show that they got some knowledge, they stumble. Like over here, there's a video of IUIC St. Louis where they went into this barber shop. And then they went in there, of course, to lecture the people. And the argument was the Sabbath. But here's the thing. How you going to try to get on these people or Christians about the Sabbath when you yourself are wrong? That the scripture said you got to take the mote out of your own eye. How you gonna help somebody else see it when you yourself don't see it? So when they went in there and they were talking about the Sabbath, the guy, in purple, when's the Sabbath? When does the Sabbath come in? And you had one guy in there, and he said, what did he say? He said, IUIC guy, he says it comes in on a Friday, say Saturday, one of those. But then you had one guy in the barbershop, and he's like, well, that's because there's different times, right? You got the Julian calendar, you got the Gregorian calendar, and then immediately the IUIC guy goes, yeah, well, we ain't talking about that right now, because we know not everybody don't here understand that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, he understands. Isn't that the whole point? So whenever they deal with somebody that actually has some knowledge, it's a problem because they don't actually understand the scriptures themselves. They're just taught, look, you're the authority. You tell them, they don't tell you nothing. Here's your precept package. So when they go to these areas, they're preying on the ignorant. They're preying on those who don't have any understanding, and they just lecture them. They don't try. They're not teaching them. They're just condemning, basically. And if you question them, it's because you're a simple-minded Negro, and they're not being gentle and meek and actually open dialogue. It's the reason they got a microphone, because they look. This is one way here. We the authority. You just listen. But the scripture says that you have to reason with the people. If somebody comes up and inquires and they have understanding of the scriptures, all they're doing is asking a question. Because basically what Ron Dalton basically asked was, what's the breakdown of Ezekiel 38? He basically proved, as in trying, he's proving breakdown Ezekiel 38. What does that mean? And basically IUIC broke it down wrong, but in the process of it, he kind of made Nate look uneasy. So how did that look? That didn't look good. So Nate's over there, them guys over there mad because, you can't, if there's anything Bishop they care so deeply about, it's that image of his. But now it's being tried. The book of Matthew 7:24, therefore, whosoever heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew, and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. The book of Sirach 27:5, it says, the furnace proveth the potter's vessel, so the trial of man in his reasoning. The fruit declareth if the tree have been dressed, so is the utterance of a conceit in the heart of man. So your reasoning is what proves the trial of man is in your reasoning and your questioning and being questioned. 1 Peter 3:15, but sanctify the Lord Yahweh in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear. Psalms 127, except the Lord Yahweh built the house, they labor in vain that built it. Except the Lord Yahweh keepeth the city, the watchman waketh, but in vain. So, is IUIC established in Yahweh Shah? Well, this is where it's being tried. We say it's not, and this is where it's being tried. It's being proven. Look, I just watched a video of this guy who does home inspections of this new construction, and he finds out issues. And he went in there. It was raining, and all you saw was leaks everywhere. All the windows were not sealed, just about improperly sealed. Water coming through the cracks. And that was the point. $70,000 new construction. But look at this. So it may look nice. Sure, it's a $70,000 new home. Looks cool, big, nice. But let's wait till that rain come. And then here you see all the cracks. Well, that's what's happening to IUIC. Told you they're catching hell over there, and this is what's happening. Now, this is what happens when you expand yourself and exalt yourself. You're the ones walking around using these AI pictures, putting yourself up as basically as a guide. If you're the king of Israel, then answer your people, answer the people. And since you're operating outside the scriptures, you want to sit down with these people, if these people who don't even believe in the scriptures, but you'll sit down with them just so, you can magnify your name and spread your name. Well, now you've opened the door to anybody coming on there and asking you a question, and you don't like that. Bishop Thad, he does his very best to ensure that he controls, he wants to control, you could say, the setting. Every time somebody is in the room with some knowledge, IUIC look like a bunch of fools. Just like when that one, I think she was a Christian lady, sat down with IUIC and she had the Christians and the Muslims in there. And she said, before we get started, we know his name isn't Jesus. What's his name? And she asked IUIC, now these are supposed to be the scholars, right? Oh, those are just titles. She was like, no. That's not his name. What's his name? Do you know it? And one guy, he was like, what did he say? He said, you Jehovah? No, not Jehovah. What did he say? He asked, one of the IUIC guys asked, like, is that the answer you want? Jehovah? Is that what you're saying? They couldn't answer. So she said, okay, since you don't know, I'm going to tell you, his name is Yahweh Shah, but it's really Yahweh Shah. But see, I thought they knew everything. Remember, they go around trying to tell everybody, we know the scriptures and you don't. You need to listen to us. Whenever there's somebody in a room that has understanding, and they prove, if they prove this house built upon sand, which is what IUIC is, they find they see in the cracks. And they look and they get uncomfortable anytime, because they don't actually study the scriptures. They're gonna get questioned. They're gonna get cornered when somebody asks them the questions. And Bishop Nathaniel knows that. That's why he instructs them to operate the way that they operate. Basically, go to the ghettos and the hoods, right? And we're not there to discuss. The only time they discuss if they're, like I said, they preying on the innocent, not the innocent, that too, but they're preying on the ignorant. And their goal is, when they upload the videos, is to make them look bad and themselves look good. Even when they'll have a civil discussion with somebody who asks a question, the title of the video would be bum doctrine, GMS bum doctrine gets destroyed. GMS wife barefoot, and it's like, where'd you get this from? I thought y'all had a peaceful discussion, because the goal is to make you look bad and make themselves look good. And if that's the case, okay, you made all you put your name out there that you're this great leader, this great person. Well, now you have to deal with being tried, being proven. Your house is being tried. The rain is descending, and you're seeing the cracks. Like it talks about. What does it say? Sirach 22:7. It says, whoso teacheth a fool is as one that glueth a pot shared together, and as he that waketh one from a sound sleep. Right. So like a posture. If you break a glass or a vase and you try to glue it back together, you're still going to see the cracks. Right. So, and it's going to be found out that there's still a crack, there's still a leak. Just like you build a house, it looks fancy, it looks nice, but now it's about to be proven. Now it's about to be tried. Here comes the rain. And then we're going to see, there's cracks in the windows, cracks in the doors. And that's why, IUIC reacted the way they reacted. You just ambush. But this is what happens when you make yourself out there, you know what I'm saying? To broaden your name, and you claim that you have the doctrine and the understanding. Well, somebody's questioning your doctrine. Someone's proving your doctrine. So that's all they did. So if you truly are the prophets of Yahweh Yahushua, if IUIC is a house established by Yahweh Yahushua, then it will stand. But as you can see, they're being proven, and they're being found out that Yahushua is not the foundation. It's not the foundation. So what's going to happen? It's going to fall, because the stormy winds and the tempest is going to come, and and the rain is coming, and it's going to blow it away. It's going to find the cracks. This is what's happening right now. You see? So now you got these nobodies in Israel talking stuff, and they like, yeah, they talking about the top dog, Bishop Nathaniel. But this is the fame you wanted. You wanted to be out there. You wanted to be known, right? You're the top guy. You said you don't sit down with nobody but your equals. So you're indicating that you're the top guy. So now you're gonna get proven. But that's why he avoids as much as possible, because he doesn't want to be cornered like that. Because if somebody corners him and actually questions him, then he's gonna get uncomfortable. And nobody questions the bishop. Nobody dares question the bishop's breakdown. How dare you question his breakdown? What he says, he just says it. Okay, but that, the Mark of the Beast breakdown, that changed several times over the years. What about that? Nobody questions what he does. Well, the Lord is coming to prove it. He's coming to try it, and he's coming to prove it. And there's holes and there's cracks in it, and it ultimately will fall because Yahushua did not establish that. And that's why it's important to just have 100% doctrine, because the man basically asks, explain Ezekiel 38. And if you understand Ezekiel 38 is dealing with the lands of the ancient map of Japhet. And the people who currently inhabit those lands aren't necessarily Japhet, like Gog. That's the Russians. And that's been taken over by the Edomites. Is Japhet still amongst them? Of course. But it's talking about Russia. Ethiopia, that's still in the land. They still got their land, right? And it's talking about the Persians. Those are the Iranians. Libya, right? Tagarmar, even though that's the son of Japhet, is talking about the land of Turkey. That's what that means. So all you had to do is say, well, what you're thinking about is talking about land mass. Basically just break the scripture down. But Nate, he got uncomfortable and he resorted to personal attack because he's not used to that. So what ended up happening, he basically called him a crab in the barrel. It didn't look good. Even the guy was like, let's try to keep it peaceful now. Let's try not to throw no personal attacks. So now Nate's his character is being proved. You see how the Lord is starting to bring that group down, and you see all he has to do is just come and try you. He comes to try your works. Let's see if it's going to stand. So, it's edification that can come out regardless, because we can go into the breakdowns and the sheep will be fed. But yeah, man, we told you, look, IUIC, look, they hit their peak, just like Esau. He hit his peak and he going down. His peak was 1969, well, up to 1968. And then he just been spiraling down. The Lord allowed IUIC to reach a certain height, and now they're just spiraling down. It's a reason why they have to just stick with fringes and the Messiah being so-called black, because when they go to venture into any other breakdown, they make themselves look like fools. That's it. You know what I'm saying? This is what's going to happen. So, there was one more I thought I was going to, oh yeah. And if like Elder Pastor said, if there is an elect amongst them, they're going to be separated. Even if Bishop Nathaniel is among the elect, he's going to be separated, but he's going to have a hard fall. 1 Corinthians 3:11. Well, I started 10. Okay. Verse 8. Now he that planteth and he that watereth are one, and every man shall receive his own reward according to his own labor. For we are laborers together with Yahweh. Ye are Yahweh's husbandry, ye are Yahweh's building. According to the grace of Yahweh, which is given unto me, as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. For other foundation can no man lay than that is laid, which is Yahushua Mashiach. And you have to have that name. It says, now if any man build upon this foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble, every man's work shall be made manifest. For the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. So we're all going to be proven. We're all going to be tried. Our doctrine is going to be tried. As I just said, the trial of man is in his reasoning. That's why Scripture says, be ready to give an answer, But it also says, after the second and third admonition, reject. So you don't just answer any question. If they don't get on the second, you move on. And the Scripture says, avoid foolish questions. So if somebody comes up and asks, did the Lord wear socks? You can just keep it moving. Like, look, we ain't going to answer that. But if somebody asks you, how do you explain Ezekiel 38, and Esau and the Hebrews, all that's within the scope of the Scriptures, you got to give the correct answer if it's 100% truth. If there's faults in it, it's going to be made manifest. And that's what was basically being brought out. And Bishop Nathaniel didn't like that, so that's why he resorted to getting frustrated. And it basically is not a good look. But it goes on. If any man's work abide which he hath built thereupon, he shall receive a reward. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so as by the fire. So if you're what you're bringing to the truth, wood, hay, stubble, and you're bringing that which is unprofitable, when the Lord comes and try it, but let's say you're being sincere, and let's say if you have the elect, if the Lord comes and try it, if it get burnt up by the fire, it said what? You shall suffer loss, but you yourself shall be saved, right? So at the end of the day, Yahweh shall still requires perfection. But, if you're sincere, you're going to ultimately be brought in, but you're going to suffer loss. And that house, IUIC, is not established in the name of Yahweh Shai. There's just way too many holes. There's too many holes in the doctrine, more holes than Swiss cheese, as Elder Apostle Bar says. And all those things are going to be tried, and they're being tried right now. And Bishop Nathaniel is uncomfortable because he cares so much about that image. You know what I'm saying? But the Lord didn't establish that house, man. You can't add and take away from the Scriptures. You can't have personal disdain for the Lord's name and think you're going to prosper. So this is the Lord proving you. And now he, as you can see, he's starting with that image of yours. He's starting with that image of yours. And you're going to have these nobodies in Israel, these people starting to examine now. And this is just on you. All you got to do is prove your doctrine, prove your understanding. And if it's going to hold, it's going to hold. If it's not going to hold, then the foundation thereof will be made bare and it will be brought down. With that, shalom.